the Mexican Mafia. La M. For decades, it has ruled the California prison system and the streets beyond with an iron grip. Ruthless, calculated, bound by a code so strict, so unforgiving, that once you're in, there's only one way out: death. That code has fueled betrayals, power struggles, endless purges. It has carved a trail of blood across generations. But behind the myth, behind the whispered stories of power, lies something darker. The lost soldiers, men who once rose to prominence inside La M, only to be crushed by the very brotherhood they swore to serve. So let's strip back the layers. Let's walk into the cells, the alleys, the courtrooms. Let's tell the story of how the Mexican Mafia came to power and why so many of its own ended up in graves, stabbed, shot, betrayed. This isn't legend. This is history. And it's brutal. The roots go back to the late 1950s. Dual vocational institution, Tracy, California. A handful of young Mexican-American inmates felt cornered, surrounded by white and black prison gangs who already had power, who already had organization. They didn't, so they built one. They called it La M, Spanish for the M, the 13th letter of the alphabet. It became their badge, their identity. For Mexican-American inmates who had felt overlooked, unprotected, this wasn't just survival, it was pride, it was brotherhood. A way to say, we belong, we are strong, and we are feared. Symbols mattered, tattoos, hand signs, the number 13 inked into skin. These weren't decorations, they were vows. But unity wasn't enough. To dominate the prison system, they needed more. Violence, and they embraced it like few others. From the beginning, La M set itself apart by how far it was willing to go. Retaliation wasn't delayed, it wasn't debated. A slight, a rumor of betrayal, a refusal to pay tribute, it was answered with blood. Swift, brutal, unforgettable. Prison officials noticed the ferocity. They tried to break La M apart, scattering members across different facilities. But the plan backfired. Instead of weakening the gang, transfers spread it. Suddenly, La M wasn't confined to one prison. It was everywhere. And as its reach grew, so did its ambition. Other gangs fought to survive. La M built an empire. Inside the walls, they seized control of drugs, gambling, extortion. They taxed everything. Nothing moved without their cut. And if you tried, you died. Through alliances with cartels, they turned prison into a marketplace. Meth, heroin, cocaine, all flooding in. Sold at prices so inflated that fortunes were made. Those fortunes didn't just stay behind bars. They flowed outward, into the streets, into neighborhoods where young gang members became soldiers for La M. That was the real innovation. Street gangs weren't just local crews anymore. They became satellites, extensions, tributaries feeding back into the prison masters. It meant that men serving life sentences could still command armies, could still generate profits, could still kill without ever touching a weapon themselves. But what truly cemented La M's power wasn't just money or muscle, it was structure, a hierarchy as rigid as the military. At the top, the carnales, the brothers. Fully initiated members. They weren't many, but their word was law. Below them, associates, soldiers, recruits men, desperate to prove themselves, and proof wasn't easy. Initiation wasn't a handshake. It was blood, a murder, an act of brutality so undeniable that it etched loyalty in scars. Once inside, there were rules, no exceptions, loyalty above all else, silence before law enforcement, obedience without hesitation, willingness to kill even your closest friend if ordered. That discipline made them unstoppable, and it made them feared. Even rival gangs like Nuestra Familia from Northern California knew that once La M marked you, your days were numbered. But alliances mattered too. In the early years, La M formed a bond with the Aryan Brotherhood, a white supremacist prison gang. It was an unlikely pairing, Mexican Americans and white supremacists. But in prison, race doesn't always dictate allegiance. Profit and power do. Together, they carved up the yards. La M controlled Latino inmates. The Aryan Brotherhood controlled white inmates. Both grew stronger. And yet, the same tools that built La M unity, violence, business, hierarchy, also sowed the seeds of constant betrayal. Because in a world where power is everything, the moment you have it, you're already marked to lose it. The history of La M is a history of its leaders being purged, replaced, erased. Take Joe "Pegleg" Morgan, a Croatian by blood, but Mexican Mafia by heart. The only white man ever accepted as a full member. Why? Because he proved himself more valuable than almost anyone else. Fluent in Spanish, raised among Chicano gangs. Ruthless when he needed to be, strategic always. Morgan built bridges to cartels, organized taxation systems, forced street gangs to pay tribute or bleed. His relationship with the Aryan Brotherhood fortified La M's grip. Inside and outside, his influence was unmatched. He became known as La M's godfather. But even a godfather isn't safe. By the 1980s, younger members started whispering, "Why should a non-Mexican hold such power? Why should one man dictate terms to the entire organization?" Resentment grew. His style, calculated business first, clashed with the new breed, who craved violence, fast profits, chaos. Morgan wasn't assassinated. Cancer took him in 1993. But his decline signaled something larger. La M was changing. It was becoming less strategic, more volatile. After Morgan, the bloodletting only accelerated. Daniel "Black Dan" Barreto learned that lesson the hard way. A powerhouse in drug operations, Barreto had connections that made him indispensable. He built networks, funneled product, generated profits others only dreamed of. But success can be dangerous inside La M. He began to operate with too much independence, making decisions without consulting higher-ups, questioning orders, holding back money, whether by mistake or design, it didn't matter. To the leadership, it smelled like betrayal. So they called him in. A meeting, they said, business, but it was a setup. His own men turned on him. Knives flashed, blood pooled. The message was clear: no matter your rank, no matter your profits, you do not defy La M. Barreto was gone, another lost soldier. And then there was Rodolfo "Cheyenne" Cadena, charismatic, visionary. He saw La M not just as a gang, but as the seed of a political empire. His dream? Unite Latino prison gangs, including their bitter rivals, Nuestra Familia, into one unstoppable force. He saw unity where others saw only enemies. But vision can be deadly. To La M leadership, extending a hand to Nuestra Familia wasn't brilliance, it was betrayal. In 1972, they sealed his fate. Transferred into a unit packed with Nuestra Familia members, Cadena never had a chance. They swarmed him. Stab after stab, blow after blow. His body dragged, displayed like a trophy. His dream of unity died with him. His story became a warning. Don't challenge the code. Don't try to rewrite history. Frank "Puppet" Martinez didn't learn that lesson. Ambitious, brilliant in business, ruthless in discipline. He rose fast, managed drug operations, built alliances. For a time, he was untouchable, but paranoia began to eat at him. He suspected betrayal everywhere, even among his own allies. He made enemies by accusing, eliminating, distrusting. And when he started questioning leadership itself, the line was crossed. That was something La M could never tolerate. They called a meeting. He walked in, expecting business. He didn't walk out. Another execution, another lesson. Paranoia is a death sentence. Then came Uro Tablas Castellanos, a strategist, a manipulator. He favored money over mindless violence, pushing La M toward business efficiency. Taxation systems, cartel deals, street control. For years it worked. He thrived, but ideology cuts deep. Old school members saw his style as weakness, too focused on profits, not enough on fear. His alliances with younger members made older carnalies resent him. And when his power grew too great, when his independence became too dangerous, the decision was made. He was stabbed over and over. His blood spilled as proof that no one, not even the smartest, could rise too high without falling. And that's the cycle, over and over. Power gained, power lost. Men rise, men fall. La M endures, but its soldiers are devoured by the very machine they helped build. Joe Morgan, Black Dan Barreto, Cheyenne Cadena, Puppet Martinez, Tablas Castellanos. Each one thought they could bend La M's rules. Each one learned too late that the rules only bend one way, down into the grave. That's what makes La M so enduring and so terrifying. It is not built on trust, it is built on fear. And fear never rests. Betrayal, real or imagined, means death. Independence means death. Questioning leadership means death. Even loyalty, when mixed with too much ambition, can mean death. And that's why the Mexican Mafia still stands today. Because it cleans house. Relentlessly, brutally, the cycle of blood never ends. Every generation brings new names, new soldiers, new betrayals, and new graves. The truth is, in La M, there are no legends, no heroes, only survivors for a time, because sooner or later, everyone becomes a lost soldier, and the next one is always waiting in line.